sales is the most lucrative skill in the world, period. The problem is most sales advice out there today is outdated, cheesy, and can even keep you from getting the deals that can make all the difference in your career. This is the No BS Sales School, a podcast for entrepreneurs and salespeople who want to master the skill of selling without all the BS.
One of the things that costs salespeople a terrific amount of money is when they give their prospects a proposal before they know what's going to happen next. I mean, what is the value to you, the salesperson, of giving somebody a proposal if you don't know what's going to happen next? What happens if you give it too early? Well, what can happen? One thing is they can take that information and use it against you with your competitor. They can study your proposal and say, gosh, I think we can do this ourselves, cheaper. Or maybe there's another option. Or they can take your proposal and say, you know what, this is great. We're going to make this decision. We're going to decide to do this in 6 months or a year. Thank you so much. So then what happens, right? What could change in a year? Everything. But when you call that person, if they call you back, they say, hey, we got your proposal here. Is this pricing still good? Well, hell no, it's not still good. Then you start over and they'll say, well, send us another proposal. You have to be aware of your buyer's decision-making process. I don't mean who's the decision maker? That's a bullshit question anyway, right? Y'all know that. You know that. You're talking to the CEO. He's probably a decision maker. However, if it's a matter that he's not dealing with every day, which if he's CEO of any size company, he's probably got other people doing all that stuff. He's probably going to bring other people in to make the decision. Wouldn't you want to know that before you present all the information? Who else is involved? What can happen if you don't ask that? If you say, who's the decision maker? Some people say it pisses somebody off. I don't know if it does that or not. It's just not the right question. Remember, we've talked to this before. It's not the questions that matter. It's what are you trying to learn? There's no such thing as the right questions. What we're looking for is what are you trying to learn that will help you, not just bullshit questions so you can show that you're asking questions, but you're trying to learn your prospects' opinions about things, help them think through matters before you waste a ton of time. I go back to the idea that your prospect doesn't know how to buy from you. Even if they've been buying your stuff from you or somebody else for a long time, they don't know how to buy. They'll always go back to their process, right? Remember the 4-step process that buyers use? First thing they do is ask about price. If you make it through that hurdle, the next thing they do is invite you in or have a conversation where maybe they ask you a bunch of questions. Maybe you don't let them ask questions because you're too busy telling them how great your shit is, hoping to differentiate yourself by your product or service, which, by the way, never works. You can't differentiate yourself by your product or service. Everybody says their product or service is the best. So that's why every buyer knows that salespeople are liars, because how could everybody be the best? Back, I don't know if y'all remember, if y'all are old enough to remember when radio stations there used to be radio stations, first of all. You know how many number one radio stations there were in Columbia, South Carolina, back when there used to be number one radio stations? There were 7. 7 number one radio stations. How does that work in a town of 600,000 people? Right? Everybody, they all got their niche. They all got their way they can claim that, but everybody knows that's bullshit. We need to, let's go back to another idea. Not everybody deserves a proposal. You don't have to give your information to everybody. Even if they ask for it, you don't have to do that. You can realize it's the wrong time, or you're giving it to the wrong person, or you've got no shot. So, has this ever happened to you? Or somebody says, give me a proposal. You work for hours and hours, maybe days and days. Or shit, I don't care, 10 minutes. And you send it out and then nothing? Or, hey, thanks a lot. We're going to take this under consideration. Or why don't you call me back in 2 weeks? Or, hey, my partner's in Europe. Don't give your proposal unless you know what's going to happen next. Here are 5 questions that you can ask, all of them that you can ask to find out about your prospect's decision-making process. Remember, this is not just for your knowledge. This is to help the prospect think through it. Everything we do is about helping the prospect think through what makes sense. And if we figure out along the way that it doesn't make sense, we can say, hey, let's not do this now. I learned a statistic a couple of weeks ago. 80% of people in 2018 and 2019, 80% of people in 2018 and 19 who reached out to a company for information ended up doing nothing. They bought nothing. 80% bought nothing from nobody. How many of those people you think got some kind of proposals, pricing, something like that? I bet it was a bunch. They bought nothing. We need to be more skeptical. Hold on to your pricing. Hold on to your information. That's your leverage. As soon as you give that away, you got nothing. They don't have to call you back. Here are 5 questions you should ask before you send a proposal or give pricing or terms or whatever else. Number 1, when were you hoping to make a decision? When were you hoping to have this thing fixed? Right? When do you want to know that? I want to know that right now before I waste a bunch of time. If they say 2 years from now, or in my world, 6 months from now, don't do it. It's not the right time. Things change, especially in this environment. Prices go up all the time. People's needs change all the time. When were you hoping to have this thing fixed? When were you hoping to get started? Number 2, why then? Wouldn't you want to know why it's in a week, a day, 6 months, 2 years? Maybe it's a budget thing. Maybe they say, because if we don't get this thing fixed right now, we'll be out of business. There's pain, right? If there's more pain, maybe that you missed, maybe there's timing pain. Would you want to know that now? Might change some things. When were you hoping to fix this? Why then? Third question, who else besides you needs to be a part of this decision-making process? Right? Well, maybe they are the decision maker. Maybe they need to bring in the CFO. Maybe they need to talk to their lawyer. Maybe they need to talk to somebody else in the company. Maybe they want to get somebody else brought on board to be comfortable. See, it's our job to make it easy for them to say yes or to say no, because that's what we want is a decision. If they got to run it by their lawyer, if they got to run it by their accountant, if the VP of whatever needs to be part of this conversation, who do you think would do a better job of selling it, you or the CEO? Who else besides you needs to be part of this conversation? Question number next. What is it you'd need to see or hear from me to be able to make a decision? What do you need to see in the proposal, in other words? Some people, some of these people drive me crazy. They want to see every single thing. They want to know details, dots on I's, crosses on T's. They want a 50-page proposal they may even read. I don't like those people. I typically don't work with those people. Here's the trick, though. If you're one of those people and you're a sales guy and you want lots and lots and lots of information, you will spend a ton of time creating a proposal for somebody who may not need to see all that shit. You may spend all the time talking about all the widgets and wonks and all the stuff in the background. They don't give a shit. All they need to know is the price and when you can start. If you give people more information than they need to make a decision, you will confuse them. You'll make it harder on yourself. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. I wonder if somebody else. Don't do that. What do you need to see or hear from me to make a decision? Also shows that you're trying to understand them and their process. This is the key, right? Your prospect must feel understood. Your prospect needs to be understood. We're asking their opinions about things. What do you need to see or hear? Not assuming they're just like everybody else. And the last question, who else besides us are you talking to? Some of the people say, I'll ask, are there anybody else in this deal? And they'll say, I think, don't think. No. Yes, we're talking to Jimmy's and we're talking to John's. Great. What were you hoping I could do? How are you going to pick? How are you going to pick? Find that out. You may get some bullshit answer like, well, we're going to get the best value. What does that mean? Oh, we're definitely not going for a low price. We want best value. Bullshit. Tell me something. How will you know best value? What are you going to base that on? I'm not trying to be a jerk, right? I'm not telling you to be a jerk. I want you to be sincerely curious and try to understand. Let your prospect know you're trying to understand so you can give them exactly what it is that they want. You have a much higher chance of winning the deal. So here are your questions. Number one, when were you hoping to make a decision? Number two, why then? Number three, who else besides you needs to be a part of this? Number four, what do you need to see or hear from me to be able to make a decision? What kind of information do you think you're going to need? Number five, who else besides us are you talking to? And number six is, how are you going to pick? How are you going to decide if you have competition? Before you send a proposal, get the answers to those questions. Understand, is it the right time? Are you talking to the right person? If they say, if it's the plant manager and he's got to get approval from somebody else, if you've already given him your proposal, you got no leverage to ask for something else. If you're talking to the plant manager and he's got to get so-and-so and so-and-so's approval as well, say, listen, can I make a suggestion? Can we get them in the room too? My biggest fear is that you and I are having this conversation. You take it to them. They ask you a couple of questions we hadn't talked about. This thing gets wrapped around the axle. I will have wasted your time. This is the part most salespeople screw up. I have a process that I just shared with you for finding out your decision maker's process for making a decision. We do processes for everything around here. Prospecting, managing expectations, getting ready for a sales call, figuring out if somebody's ready to buy, figuring out when to close, figuring out what it is we need to present, and then making sure that after somebody signed a contract, the deal doesn't blow up. Processes. I'm Walker McKay with No BS Sales. If you want to figure out how to get to the truth with your prospect and not play frickin' games, let's have a talk. 803-917-2817, Walker at walkermckay.com. Go get them.
Thanks for listening to No BS Sales School podcast. If you haven't already, please take 1 minute to write a quick review for the show. It really does make a huge difference. Also, subscribe to the show and please forward this episode to somebody else who needs to hear it. As a bonus for listening, I'm going to give you access to a free mini course, 7 expensive sales mistakes you're making and what you can do about it. Go to www.7salesmistakes.com and get access to the free mini course. That's the number 7salesmistakes.com. Thanks again for listening to the No BS Sales School podcast.